Thank you so much, Tom. Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jira, and welcome to this event with your presenter today, Tom Howell. I'm going to run through a brief introduction with everyone before handing you over to Tom. Before we start, please let us know that you can hear us okay by typing yes in the chat box or by simply giving us a thumbs up using the reactions menu. You can find the reactions menu at the bottom toolbar of your Zoom app, represented by the heart icon. We ask that you keep your reactions polite and professional if you intend to use it. Within the same toolbar, you will also find the resources and whiteboard buttons. If you cannot see them, please find the More button with the three dots icon and see if they are there. A window will pop up on the right side of your Zoom, and by default, you should see the Links tab. You can access the materials for this event under the Documents tab. Please also be informed that this event is being recorded for regulatory purposes. We encourage you to turn your cameras on and stay muted when you are not speaking to ensure that the trainer's delivery is free from extra noise. Please feel free to add any questions you have into the chat box, and your trainer will check the chat box periodically. Anything your trainer cannot answer will be passed on to Pearson, and you'll hear back from them with additional support within 2 working days. That is all I need to go through for now. I hope you find the event valuable. I will now hand you over to Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Jira. Okay, so this is the rough outline for today, but I am more than happy to jump around on this. So if people want to miss certain bits out and go, start at the end, that's fine. This is just the signed off document, but we've got some stuff on materials, resources, where to find them. If people have already found everything and you've got everything downloaded and ready, we can skip that section if you want. I normally do a bit of a tour of a website. I've also put into the resources section of this Zoom call most of the materials that I think you'll need for today's event. Now, I know industry placements is something that people are worrying about, and we tend to have a bit of a chat about that. And that's worked quite well in previous events where we've just all put our cameras on and talked about how we can overcome some of the hurdles. Then I know people that are thinking a bit more medium to long term. We can think about delivery models, mapping the delivery, and we'll look at the materials that have been provided by Pearson. And then another thing that I know for some people in FE or who've been delivering qualifications other than the T levels recently, might be a bit daunted by the prospect of delivering content ready for an exam. So there's a little bit at the end about exam preparation. But like I say, if that's what people want to go to first, we can always do that. So just let me know. I've got the chat box open and I'll be monitoring it. If you want to ask a question, you can also use any of your. I think it only works if you're using the app, but there's also the Q&A box, and the Q&A box allows me to answer things either by text on that, and it remains a bit like a sticky, so we can build up some FAQs, and it can come just to me if you want it to be like a private question. Okay. So, right, we've got quite a few people, and we might do some breakout rooms depending on how many more people arrive rather than a big chat. Okay, so where to find the materials and the tour of the website. So I think most people, if you could give me a thumbs up if most people feel like they know they've got everything that they feel like they need. And we can, okay, a couple of people do, some people not so sure. Okay, oh yeah, we've got some people that think they've got everything. I'm just going to quickly, when you receive the PowerPoint, you will have a link to the admin support pages. I've put this link in because they're really, really useful. They're really handy because they've got the admin support guides, and when they're quite dry documents, but they're there for a reason, and they tell you exactly what you need to do when for each assessment. Worth sharing with your admin team and your wider team as well. Also, I've got a link here to the delivery guide, which when we wrote this pack was the only online resource that was available. The materials that you'll probably need are all the ones that I've included in the download. So the scheme of work, delivery guide, the sample assessment material, and the specification. Hopefully you all know how to locate them. Here's just a quick screenshot of the website. So I just want to highlight a few things that are really handy. The first is up here. There is this subscribe button on the website itself. If you click on that, then every time new documents are uploaded, you will get an email alert. So for example, if there's a new delivery guide or the key dates schedule, etc., you should get an email about that. The other thing is obviously Jacqueline is our subject advisor. If you have any general questions, it's worth getting in touch with her and she can book you in. I think there's an automatic booking link just a bit further down on the page, 15 to 30-minute kind of chat with her about specific questions. I've used that quite a few times in my teaching. Oh, yeah, just to introduce myself, I'm currently still a teacher, so I do this kind of work for Pearson part-time, assessment and training, but I'm still teaching. I teach in a high school in the north of England, and I teach media at level 2. But I also teach music and music technology all the way up to level 3, and I'm an assessor and examiner, and write some assessment materials, mainly in the music and music technology sector, but also I do some work for creative media as well. Okay, so anyway, yeah, Jacqueline, really useful person to just book in half an hour with. And then if you click on the course materials tab up there, or you can get to it there as well, this is where you'll find all the stuff that you're going to need. So when there's new sample assessment materials, etc., it's just worth going there. When you receive this PowerPoint, this is a hyperlink, this image as well. So it'll just take you directly to that page. Now, this is the other page that I said was really useful. That's the training and admin support. It's kind of hidden away a little bit, but so that's why I've included a link to that there, because it has loads of stuff that's really useful for you on that page as well. So I have in the past, when people are kind of just starting out, when the course is brand new, we've had this page before where I kind of ask people to go off, check that they can find everything and come back. But I think, seeing as most of you have either started delivering or are starting delivering next week, I'm going to presume your professionalism, you've all found them. And if anyone doesn't know where anything is, please just put something in the chat and I will show you or send you a link as a private message. One thing just to say is, from my experience on the other side as a standards verifier or as an examiner, there isn't a year goes by when we get to the point where people are claiming certification and we find out that they have actually been registered on the incorrect course. So I've just put this on there just to make sure that they just to make sure that your exams officer knows exactly which course it is that your learners are supposed to be on, and for you to check that with them. It's worth doing now. I know that you're probably coming up to census kind of beginning of October, making sure people are course ready and making sure they're appropriate for the course. So we've done all that scrambling to get our course up and running and get the students on board. So after October is normally when people do the registration. So it's worth just highlighting it now for you there. Okay. So the course is a little bit different, and I think for lots of people coming from BTEC Nationals, just to be clear about the UCAS tariff and the A-level equivalents, I've put that table on there for you. I'm sure you all know about it, but it's Distinction Star is only available at qualification level. Internally, things can go up to distinction, which is the equivalent of 3A stars and a lot of UCAS points. So there's the UCAS tariff there. I think this is slightly different from when if you've taught the BTEC Nationals, that we have this pass C or above on the core and pass D or E on the core. So we have that distinction now as well. So it's just worth, I think that's probably the only major change that it's worth people making a note of, and probably worth mentioning that to students as well, especially if they're wanting to resit and wanting to do the core, that there is that kind of distinction. So they might just think, oh, I get a pass, I'm going to get 96, but they will have to get a C on the core in order to get that. Okay. All right, so for all of you, the thing that I find, when I went through the specification for the first time, that I found quite different, is that obviously we now have some elements that are graded A star to E, but we still have some that are traditional, if you've taught vocational qualifications, that are pass, merit, and distinction. So it's this we've kind of got a hybrid model here, and the overall grading as you can see, their distinction star is only available overall. So depending on what internal units they get, they can get a distinction star um, in their final qualification. So this table I put together because I was finding it really confusing to work out what what students might come out with. And so I hope that this makes it a little bit more clear. So a learner who gets an A star in the core and gets a distinction in their occupational specialism will get a distinction star overall. You can see here, this is where they will still get a pass, depending whether they get the C, D, or E on the core. But obviously, as highlighted before, there is a distinction between this pass and how many UCAS points it's worth, and this pass. Okay, hopefully that's clear. No need to screenshot that table, but you can, steal it off the PowerPoint when I send it to you. Again, worth probably sharing with the students because I think it's quite a good, easy visual way for them to see, especially when it gets towards the new year and they might be thinking about whether to retake stuff, etc. Okay, so I think somebody said that they were thinking about planning the course long term, so they're planning it for next September. Some people have been just started at a new centre and are expected to deliver it next week, and some people are already delivering. So I think planning is going to be quite important. This table here just shows you how it's all broken up. So we have these two areas, the core and the occupational specialism. The core is obviously divided into two subsections, the exam itself and the employer set project. The employer set project is based on these skills, and the core exam is kind of assessing everything, including the knowledge and the understanding. Together, they are graded in that kind of more traditional A-level grading of A star to E and U, and worth 30% of the qualification. We then have the occupational specialism. Now, for most of you, and probably for most of your learners, this is the bit that they signed up for, that they're excited by, that they want to do. So this is the doing. Now, I've seen everybody has said they wanted to do content creation. If we're going to do breakout rooms, it might be worth just pairing people up. So I know Richard is doing events and venues technician. Is there anybody else on the call? If you could just put it in the chat so that Jira and I know. So we know that Richard is doing events and venue technician. We're going to presume everybody else is doing content creation unless you put something in the chat for us. I hope that kind of works okay. That'll make Jira's job easier and mean we're going to have everybody typing. So we'll just presume you're doing content creation unless your name is Richard or you type in the box. Okay, brilliant. So we've got Tim as well doing EVT, so we could pair Tim and Richard up for breakout rooms, Jira. Okay, and then the final bit down here, whilst you're typing in, is the industry placement. Again, I know this is causing some people some anxiety and a bit of worry and stress. We had quite a good chat in the last event just before the end of the summer term about ways that we can approach that, and I'm hoping we can share some of that best practice here. Might get an update from people who I was talking to on that previous call about how my advice or the advice that they received from other delegates has gone. But it's important to note some of the things about this that when you first see it, when I first read it, I thought, well, that's never going to happen. If I was running a course in Bradford and I needed 350 hours of media placement for 20 students, I'm never going to be able to do it. But actually, when you dig into it a little bit, I think there is a little bit more possibility, and it's a little bit more flexible than we might first expect. How it's divided up. Okay, so total qualification time of 1,200 hours, and total qualification time 1,460, of which 1,200 is guided or taught. So that includes any time when you've got kind of oversight or you're delivering them stuff, and then this might be them practicing techniques and skills and research and etc. Core components. So just when you're planning the core component, you need to think about giving them 360 guided learning hours of teaching before they complete the core component. So you might want to have, if you're in this medium to long-term planning process at the moment. Have a look at some of the dates. I always start with the dates that are set in stone. So, for example, the exam that's in mid-June, work backwards. How can I make sure, I know that I've got my learners for 30 weeks and X amount of hours. So, how much teaching time do I need to give them in the classroom? Don't forget, teaching time does not necessarily need to be chalk and talk in a lecture theatre. It can be practical application of that knowledge and understanding that you've taught them. There are various models that it seems that different centres are doing. So some centres have decided that this core component is being delivered centrally by people outside of the specialist part. So I know there are a couple of colleges that have said, well, we're getting business and law lecturers to deliver that stuff to every T-level student. So they're doing in large lecture theatres, and then they come to you as specialists. But similarly, there are other people that we've spoken to who, they have 20 students and one lecturer, and they are responsible for everything. So loads of different models, and it will depend on your centre how you're going to do that. Then the occupational specialism, as you can see, this is over the 2 years, obviously. You have to build that in. Okay, industry placement, like I said, minimum of 315 hours, which works out at 45 days, and a maximum of 2 placements. Just to highlight a misconception that I had on the craft and design call on Tuesday, the 2 placements is 2 placements per student. There was a college that was trying to get 20 students into just 2 industry placements, into just 2 businesses, and they said they felt that it was an impossible task. So just to remind you, that would be an impossible task. It is 2 placements per student, okay? And they can be varying lengths, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Now, I'm sure you've all gone through the specification and you've seen the content areas. So here are the 10 content areas that need to be covered. These are pretty general and generic across, certainly across all the T levels that I've looked at, the creative ones. This idea of learners having this real overview of what the industry itself looks like. So as we know that, the idea behind the T levels is that we're producing employable content creators and events technicians of the future. So it's really important that they have this broad and wide overview of the industry in general, plus the skills that they can apply, whether they go straight from you into employment, or some people might decide that their route is to go from here into university. So we need to make sure that they have all of these elements covered. They certainly do not need to be covered in sequentially in the audience done here. They can be done holistically together, and they can also be delivered alongside the core skills themselves. And some of them, the concept of continued professional development, that might start being delivered day 1, hour 1, when your learners arrive with you, and as long as you're kind of delivering that content as a thread throughout the entire course, it might go on all the way through to the day that they leave you. And I think you can see that a lot of these things are going to be built into not just the industry placement and the experience they get there, also the ESM, but you might need to do a little bit, you'll have to do some core delivery to start with, and then you'll have to keep repeating it and going back to it as they're doing the more practical tasks. So the competencies and skills, as I said, not expected to be delivered at every single point where they're mapped, but this guidance is going to help you preparing the students for those assessments when it comes up to the core component and the ESM. The core skills are all assessed through the employer set project. Okay, I think I'm going to pause there because I've done a lot of talking. Have we got any questions on the content areas and how they can be delivered, or any issues that we might have, or difficulties? Has anybody looked through the materials and got an issue on them? So these are all spelled out in detail in the specification, and people understand how they're assessed. Yes, Bryony.
I've unmuted myself.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah.
I just think, just to get the conversation going a little bit, maybe, I think this is potentially the most challenging part for level 3, what might be traditional. So in my context, they would have done the UAL probably if they weren't. That's what they have done in the past. Do you know what I mean? So it's vocational college. And so it'll be these areas that I think for me and for them will be the most challenged because it's sort of theory and it's exam, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think you're right. And we, on previous events like this, we've had quite a lot of discussion about, well, what do you do that first day they walk through the door? These are students that maybe have just finished their GCSEs a few months ago. They're really excited about becoming content creators, for example, and then you sit them down and you're going to talk about legislation and their professionalism. So, has anybody got any? I mean, thanks for starting the conversation, Bryony. Has anybody got any ideas or tips or worries about, how you might deliver this content in a way that is going to engage these 15, 16-year-olds that might have had quite a negative experience of their previous uh, exams in high school? Does anyone want to pitch in? Do people disagree that maybe this isn't the hardest bit?
I was talking to another colleague at the same time, so I apologise. I turned my camera, so I actually didn't hear the
No, that's
question, Tom.
fine.
I'm sorry. Someone
Oh,
said,
just
"What are we
so
doing later?" So I had to just turn off. I apologise.
no, it's absolutely
And I
fine.
turned back on again to you saying, "Has anyone got any questions about this?" I thought, I have no idea.
No, it's fine. Brian, he was just saying that they felt that this content area and the delivery is probably, when you consider it to some other vocational qualifications they've delivered in the past, is probably going to be the hardest bit for
I
lecturers
agree.
and learners. And we were saying, I think we had this discussion last time, didn't we, Richard, that we don't want people to turn up and have loads of dry content rammed down their throats. So how are you thinking of approaching some of this stuff?
Well, like you said previously, we have split up our delivery of the T level into separate parts. So my subject specialism is in events and venue technicians pathway part of it. So I'm traditionally a stage manager, so I know those things. We have got someone else to deliver these normal content areas. And I totally agree with you, Brian. It has been the thing which has been the most challenging to try and organise so that people can get involved in it. We taught UALs for 10 years. So I know the UAL spec extremely well, and we were sort of involved in the creation of it, so we understand what it's like to move from that to there. And I totally agree with you. Some of this stuff is very wordy for a level 3 learner to get. What we've done is we've changed the application rates for the students, so they had to have high GCSE grades to get onto it to make sure that they can achieve that work. Traditionally, the production art students weren't of the highest grades when it came from GCSEs. So we just took them to do the UAL, and that was fine because that sort of worked for them. But we've changed our GCSE acceptance, so they have to come and do it, so it's slightly higher. So actually, we've got a slightly different cohort of people starting this year on the T level, so that we are making sure that we can get them through it.
Okay,
But the
so
person
you're
who's
so you're kind of
delivering, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, so you're doing that kind of right from the start. Your recruitment policy is affecting your delivery, really. So delivering
Yeah,
students with a certain academic grade.
and that's sad because actually, and good at the same time, because actually means we've got the young people who can do the course, but there have been those people who have been on the outer reaches of what we need grade boundary wise, and they have not been able to do the T level this year because they can't meet the academic standards that we've set out to start with. So
Okay.
we've had to put them onto other qualifications as a sort of pre-T, as a sort of starting point for that, so they're making sure they can get onto it next year, which I think actually is not a bad thing for them because it means
Yeah,
they've got more of an
and
opportunity to move up to it.
I suppose one advantage is you're not going to have these students off resitting their English or maths or whatever halfway through the course, or potentially failing it halfway through, because there is, when they're delivering this, they do not need to be redoing the resits, because
We've got
it's
some
kind
very,
of it.
very strong A-level students
Right,
who are doing the
brilliant.
T level instead. It's just changed the sort of pattern of what those students are like. But we are
Okay,
delivering it, we're delivering it long and thin. So I've got a young tutor who's working with me who's just gone off to go and have a baby, who is going to deliver in the exact format that Pearson's have described,
okay. So
using the
sticking
scheme
with
of
it.
learning, just working
Yeah.
through it. But then as we move forward, we're looking at opportunities in which we can make it less chalk and talk and more interesting for them to do. He's a media teacher by trade.
Okay.
So he understands lots of these different things in a slightly different way, which I think will be really useful for us. So
Yeah, that does
we're
sound
just
really
looking
good.
at a starting point.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your input, Richard. Bryony, have you got a hand up again, or is that a legacy hand up from before?
It is a legacy hand up,
Okay.
but I just want to agree with Richard. I do believe at enrolment, and I wasn't around for enrolment, they've done the same, more stringent on the English and maths at A to C, more stringent than they've ever been. They delivered UAL before, and I was very pleased to see that because I think I'll just make this mention that the profile then of a T-level student is somewhere between an A-level candidate and a vocational candidate. And I think that's probably the challenge. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, so we've done that as well, higher entrance, and then well, not higher, more stringent on that. You must have A to C maths and English, and you must have five at, not C, is it? It's sixes,
fives and fours. Yeah.
Yeah, that. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing is well, we've already had a week, and I actually used the skills. I won't go on about it, but we're doing a little thing with the skills, and I just saw little opportunities to just link in with a bit of legislation and a bit of reflective practice. And I thought, if I just do that in a practical way and introduce them to the idea of it, then when it'll be me as well that comes in with the theory.
Yeah.
And
so I think that's the advantage of that kind of model, where you are delivering the practical tasks and you can constantly be referring to these, the content and the vocabulary within these areas. And then when it comes to delivering them, they've been covered. The difficulty if you are working with colleagues, like in Richard's situation, is you just all need to be really clear on the language that's being used and make sure every time you're reinforcing that language, it's the same vocabulary, the same command verbs, etc., and that you're really reinforcing that. So we do quite a lot of work in the centre I work in on making sure our definitions are really clear. So what is X? And we make a really clear definition of it that's used across the entire department. In fact, we do it across all of the performing and creative arts. So we're really clear as a faculty, I suppose, that we're defining things the same and reinforcing that everywhere we go. So yeah, Tim, you put your camera on. Is that because you want to say something, or is that?
Yeah, sorry. I've been trying to find the hand up. I've been trying to find the hand up tool for so long.
That's okay. Are you on a mobile device?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I came straight from a lesson. I
Right.
thought I'd just get on mid-lesson, but yeah.
No, that's
so
fine.
so we've started the course already. So we started in September last week. So the way we've split it up is we've got a team of 3. I'm the lead teacher, and then we've got a business studies teacher and an English teacher. So naturally, you kind of drift towards the creative economy, and I think legislation for the business studies teacher. And then the others have kind of fell into the media studies, English specialism. I've kind of taken myself away from core content and focused on the core skills, because that is my kind of industry specialisms, but also for us, it made sense for doing the ESP, one staff member to just focus on it. And I know that will completely depend on people's timetable and things like that, but it's been nice so far for a couple of teachers to have their content areas to focus on, and then the core skills as well. But coming on to the definitions point you made there. At the moment, it's quite challenging to create resources without exact definitions, because the scheme of work plan is brilliant because it's got a load of different task ideas and things like that. But what it's lacking is your key vocab. And other than going on kind of other courses that Pearson run, so like going on the Creative iMedia, I know that's Cambridge National, but going into those kind of key vocab glossaries, it's quite hard at the moment to, like you say, stick to the key terms.
Okay, that's really useful. So I do know that there are people who are commissioned at the moment to turn those schemes of work into lesson plans and lesson resources, and that is happening at the moment. I know that because I am one of them. So would something like a key terms glossary and definitions be something that people would want?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually something you get at the back of a textbook that's produced. And obviously,
Yeah.
I think myself and other people will share your challenges with producing a full textbook, because you want to get it right. You don't want to rush it and produce something.
Yeah.
But
And also,
yeah, if on the resources channel on your website, if you've produced like a glossary already,
yeah.
that is great to have as a separate tool.
Well, I can certainly say, can we kind of expedite something like that and try and get it up, get it written this week, and get it, because that won't take long to be checked and signed off, and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that up there. So I will definitely take that back to the training people.
Thank you. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Okay, brilliant. So yeah, so I think just in a nutshell, the content areas, I think, as we've discussed there, the content areas, they can be a bit wordy. I think, as Bryony and Richard said, and there are Tim, sorry, there's loads of different ways that you can deliver this, and whether that's one lecturer or several, and try and get every point to have ways. I think, just to pick up on Bryony's point, having ways where, when you're delivering the skills themselves, just constantly referring back. So in music and music technology, we'd never taught exams before, and suddenly they came in about 4 or 5 years ago, and I tried really, really hard to have exam type questions, and it wasn't in my wheelhouse, and the students hated it. And then one year I thought, I'm just going to give it this up, and we're just going to put on loads of gigs and record loads of EPs, and I'll just chuck them into the exam and see what happens. I mean, not there was some teaching, but I did about 80% of it was just them actually doing it, putting on a gig, recording music, and all of the grades went up. So it made a big difference. So we all know that we learn, especially in the sectors that we work in, we learn better by doing, quite a lot of us, and by repetition and constantly coming back. So I think there's quite a lot to be said of making sure that you're really clear with this stuff and delivering it through the core skills. Speaking of which, the core skills here, now this, I think the way this is lined up is nothing new to any of us. Essentially, this is that plan, do, review cycle. So we do that whatever we're doing, especially in the creative sector. We're given some kind of task. We begin by planning it, generating ideas. We share them with somebody. We develop them. We collaborate to realize them, and then we look back and decide what we want to keep and what we want to change as we go forward. So I always talk, and in our faculty, we always talk about this cycle of plan, do, review. We do that from when the young people are 11 all the way up to when they leave us to go to university. So every young person in my centre knows that plan, do, review cycle. And that's essentially what we're doing here. So I think one thing to hold in mind is you can do this from the first day they come in. I know a lot of centres in this first month, when we're seeing if learners are appropriate, or if they're on the right course, and before we register them finally, we'll do some kind of mini project. So if you can generate a mini project right now, straight from the off, that gets your learners engaged and stuck into what you're doing, then I think just seeing if you can quickly do this 6-step process, which is going to hold them in good stead going forward, is a really, really good thing to do. Let me just check my notes, check I've covered everything. I think so. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, these core skills are the ones that are going to come through the ESP, and you'll see that when you downloaded the materials and you have a look at them, you'll see that the tasks loosely kind of link to these ones themselves. Obviously, for some centres, there might be some issues with some of the later things when they're having to work together. I think that's quite different from other vocational qualifications and having to present together. So if there are any issues with that, let us know in the chat, and we can have a talk about it. Okay, so I'm going to skip now, if it's okay with everybody, to the industry placements. I think that seems to be where people. Okay, so Bryony, with the having to work together, what I'll do, I will get the document up to share to show you in a minute. Have you downloaded the sample assessment materials? So if you look at the tasks that they need to do, I will show you where it goes through kind of what they need to do and how they need to work collaboratively, and share that on screen so you can have a quick look about what it is that they need to do. It's worth thinking about that when you plan. Jira, are we sorted for the breakout rooms?
Hi, Tom. How many would you need? I'm just double checking.
Okay, so how many people do we have in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 people. I would say, and we wanted to have Richard and I think was it Tim that was also doing events?
Yes, I noted that.
Yeah, so if we have Richard and Tim, and then 2 other groups of
Two
people in content
others.
creation. Yeah.
Okay.
So because I'm gonna quickly go through the industry placement overview now, and then we're gonna have a breakout activity where you can chat to each other about approaches to industry placements. So I think for a lot of centers, this is probably the thing that has been causing people the most stress and anxiety, and it's the biggest change. So industry placements are an essential part of the qualification, but they are managed by the DFE, not by you, and it is unassessed, but they must complete it. They have to do a minimum of this 315 hours, and that needs to be an industry environment that's linked to the occupational specialism, or, and this is an important or the T-level route. Now, if we look at the content areas here, this does not have to purely be content that is covered when they are working in a media, directly in a media environment. Now, it would be amazing if they're all in, like stage floors, or if they're doing stage management in a TV show, or if they're working with Channel 4, any of the big, the big companies. But actually, if we have a look at a lot of the stuff here, this can be delivered through a media context. And I think media lends itself a bit better than craft and design to this in a wide variety of businesses. So a small business that requires social media presence, or a local shop that requires some kind of media creating for them, or advertising. A lot of these placements can be in non-media settings. So I think that's just a really important distinction to make there, that actually when we're looking at those, when we're looking at the industry placements, it does not necessarily have to be directly in the media setting. Okay, so that's one thing I'd like you to chat about when we go into the breakout rooms. What kind of other placements, maybe secondary placements, could people go in that might help you out? The other thing is that we've got that up to 20% remote. Now, the idea behind this is that, for example, your learners might go to a particular business or a particular placement and be asked, right, you need to do this task. Now, that will be organized by the placement themselves, and they might say, okay, so you can have 1 day a week where you're at home working on editing the assets ready to bring into the center, to the placement, etc. They can be placed with a maximum of 2 employers. Now, for those of you that, maybe you've done a PGCE route, that there'll be a block A and a block B when you're delivering PGCs. You could organize your course in that way. So perhaps block A, they might be looking at some of the more generic skills, or they might be only being in every Friday or once a week. And then you could have block B, which is maybe a more intense 2 or 3 week placement. That's one way of thinking about doing it. And that would halve the number of employees you need to find. So let's say you have 12 students and you wanted to do that block A, block B model, you then only need to find 6 placements that are willing to have your learners over that year, because they might do a 1 day a week block over a period of 3 or 4 weeks, and then they might do the rest towards the end of the course as a longer, more intense block. So and that might be a different learner going to the same employer. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so send learners, obviously they have a reduced number of hours on site. So they would have other places where they probably at your college where they would need to be the rest of the time. So 35 hours. So as tasters, that's basically a week as tasters. It could be that all your learners do the same taster to give them an idea of the kind of placements they want. So that can reduce the number of hours that you need on those specific placements. So the tasters might be an example, might be that they all of your learners go for a day to a specific place. I mean, it depends on the size of your cohort, obviously, and have a day of work experience there to see if that's the kind of thing they want to do. Must be completed to achieve the qualification, but is not graded. And I've put the link to the DFE website there because that's the place for the most up-to-date information. So, having gone through all of that, I haven't seen any questions, and nobody has left the meeting, so that's a good sign. So challenges that you're going to face in your center. Now, again, this is going to be different depending on your particular center. We've put you into breakout rooms, I think. So if you could just, I think 5 minutes, maybe and then I'll try and pop into each one after 5 minutes and just check that we're all okay. So it would be good just if we can think of the challenges, and if you could try and help each other overcome the challenges. Obviously, we've not been able to put you together geographically, which so I'm sorry if like your locations are not equivalent, but it might be good. So 5 minutes. If I pop in and you're really into it, we can extend it to 10 on what challenges you're going to face in your center and how you overcome them. So Jira, if you're ready, if we could go into breakout rooms, that would be brilliant.
Yes, Tom, I'll open the breakout rooms now.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're all back in. I think we're all back in the room, as far as I can tell. Let me just check.
We're back.
Yeah, we are back.
We're here.
Is there one? Oh no, there is. Yeah, everyone is here. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so yeah, I came in. I think I managed to get into all 3 rooms. It seemed like some really good discussions going on from everyone, which was great. So Bryony, you guessed that I was going to ask you to feedback, and you were making little notes from things you wanted to discuss. So it sounded like you were having a really good discussion about a lot of things, and you had a lot of concerns. So do you want to go for it first, Bryony?
Yeah, sure, why not? So we talked about a lot of things. Challenges for industry placement, to hone it down. And these are not ones I've made up. I've already spoken to my students and they've already come to me and gone, I can't do it because, okay, number one, we're in quite a remote area. And a lot of my students live very remotely. And so getting to and from, so for example, our college is like agricultural, they actually get bussed in and out. Do you know what I mean? Like not even public bus, like, so how are they getting anywhere? Number one, I recognise up to 20% remote, but still, that's going to be one challenge, I think. Well, that is probably the major challenge. Yeah, that's it. Because I think me and Simon had a really good chat and we just talked a lot about thinking out of the box when it comes to this. So if students have, a special interest, for example, in whatever, they might be able to find, that business or industry which has a media department or a marketing department, and they can slot into that, or they can make content potentially for like, whatever, their uncle's a barber and whatever.
Yeah.
So we get all that, and I think we can probably exploit that.
Yeah.
It's good to know that I could maybe take them to one place. I could take them on a trip, couldn't I, for a day, and that can knock out some hours, right?
Yep. So you
One
can
of
do
my
up to a week of trips, basically,
a
to
week
knock out.
Well,
Well,
okay.
so like up to, so 5. I think it's like 5 days.
I like it though. I'll look at that. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And
So if you do that over the course before, so they're basically getting a flavour of the industry, and they're seeing what placement they would like to go on.
Sky used to have some great days, for example, The Guardian, right? Do you know what I mean? I don't know if they still exist, but I'll probably look into something like that, right? So that'll,
Yeah.
anyway. So the other thing, so here's my questions, right?
Yeah.
So a student came to me and went, okay, yeah, but so I'm trying to get the student to think out the box. Went, yeah, you know, my mate's got a clothing brand. I went, oh, right, yeah. I went, and he said, oh, yeah, I could do some fashion shoots. I'm like, brilliant. And then my health and safety safeguarding brain went, is your mate like a registered business? Does it have to be a registered business? What's the requirement here? What if they come to me and go, I'm in a band and we need to make a music video for ourselves, right? So
Okay.
then what?
So that's where I would say, that's why I've shared that DFE website with you,
Okay.
because it's all very clear on there what needs to happen. I think in some, I mean, if you're an agricultural college, surely people go on placements as part of those agricultural course, land management and stuff. No?
So they do, yes, they do, but it's also a residential college.
Okay. So,
You know what
but
I'm
you
saying?
must have. Have you got? What I mean is, have you got a placements office? Have you got a
Oh
placements
yes,
team?
no, I have a girl to help me. She's brilliant.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is part, this was
So
part of the discussion. Yeah. So
yeah. So I think yeah. Essentially, what you'd have to do is, like you said, that where a mate's got a t-shirt brand and they want us to design the website and do the photo shoot, that is definitely possible. You know,
yes,
because what's the
that's
difference
what I want to hear.
between if it's a mate as opposed to it's my uncle or the person down the road? But I think you need to be really careful that the DFE requirements are met and that the college's health and safety requirements are
Okay.
met. And personally, as a music teacher, I like to hand all of that on to somebody else. So I think delegating that kind of stuff, come up with the idea, delegate it, and have something in your back pocket that they might be able to do if that doesn't all
Right.
come off, would be because
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. No, I
delegate
think
the
I would manage.
organization and the checking, etc., to someone else within the college who has experience in doing that, whether it's the person who does the childcare placements or the land management placements or whatever. They will be able to fill out the spreadsheet better than I ever would.
That's certainly my experience, Tom.
Yeah.
Sorry
we've got an entire team of people who do all that for us. And
yeah.
I certain no, I'm just saying that as a lecturer, you've got a person who's working with you as well.
I do have a
Brian,
person, a link person. She's like new.
And Richard, you work so you're Norfolk. Are you in Norwich or are you in Norfolk?
We are
Norfolk?
in Norwich, but we also have an agricultural college as well, Eastern College, which is part of our group of colleges as well.
So have you got an issue with the kind of rural transport issue?
Rural transport is horrendous. Yes, certainly. There's students who have only one bus in and one bus out during the day, and that actually doesn't meet when they need to be in college at all. So I do hear your feelings, Brian. And certainly with our agricultural college, which is outside of the city, strangely enough, they do struggle to get students in and out of there when it comes to those things. But what we've tried to do with our admin team, with our industry placement team, they didn't say that, they didn't hear me say that, is find people who are close to those places which can be offered. That sounds like a really silly thing to say, but there are quite a lot of small venues around in our locality which might work for us. So instead of trying to move the students to where you are, try and move the students to where they already are.
I was thinking that they're not. Are they all? They're not all just in like 3-house hamlets, are they? There must be something in the locations where they live. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this girl yesterday, she showed me where she lived, and I went, "Oh wow, okay, I see."
Where are you based, Bryony?
But then I went, "It's got church, it's got a primary school."
So a church might need a newsletter doing. It might need a website doing. Primary school, all of those things are. So anything like that is fine. Primary schools and all schools, as we know, all education placements now, we're all about marketing and branding and promotion and getting numbers in. So they would love to have somebody that can. I mean, do you see the zoo, the Northumbria Zoo, that did that TikTok video the other day? Anything like that, I'm sure people would be jumping out for a young person to come and do some promotion for them. Thanks, Brian. That is a real challenge. Go on.
I was just going to say, sorry. One more thing, though. I know it's a cop-out, but we do have, of course, our own large marketing department as a group of colleges. And I was thinking this because I do have some students with SEND and stuff. And I was like, in the worst case scenario, if somebody, that is okay, isn't it? Just to allow, one or two of our students, if needs be, to work for the marketing department of the college?
My gut says yes, but I want to check that before I let you know, because
okay.
I don't know 100%, and I don't like, on these kind of calls, I don't like saying yes when I don't know. So I'm going to check if placements could be in college.
We had a bit of an issue with our placements being within college because we've got a theatre. So our first plan was to just make them work in the theatre.
Yeah.
And the college said, no, you can't do that. It has to be outside of college.
Yeah, I think
college
So I
said,
don't know where the rule or line is for that, Brian. So I think it's always worth a little check to find out.
Yeah,
because that's what we were like. Oh, we'll just employ them.
Yeah, with the T levels, T levels it might be different because of the DFE's direct involvement. You might need to just check, because I think they might want it to be that looking at this being, what's the word they use, the gold standard of qualifications. So I think they do actually want the learners to have experience outside of the college itself, is my gut. But for SEND learners,
very disappointing and sad. I'm just going to say that, but it's fine.
Yeah, for SEND learners, I don't know, because I know that you said that there's some learners who, so if they're doing 20% remote, whether that employer could be someone a bit more local, or I'm not sure, or if it could be, you might need to, for SEND learners, look at maybe them working at an institution where they already attend, or something they've already got relationships with. I'm not sure. That might be something that they could, that they could engage with. So if there's a charity or an organization that they work with regularly, could they have some kind of meaningful employment there? Thanks for that, Bryony, and thanks, Richard. So it's just, I think the other group was the group 2, so that was Sarah and Leanne. What were you guys thinking? Did you come up with any challenges or any solutions, or anything that we need to all solve together?
Very similar, I think, in terms of the industry placement. But the other thing we were talking about was the sort of guided learning hours, and whether sort of the time that we've allocated, is that matching up with what other people are allocating, and how that sort of links in with the funding, I suppose. So just trying to sort of understand what the total qualification time actually involves, and whether we've
I don't know if it's.
We may have given the students the pose with other people.
So I think I'm not sure if that was Leanne's connection or mine that just went then, but I wasn't. Okay. So what Leanne was saying was that they've built in 4 sessions during the week for their learners, and as part of that, they're kind of doing a bit of a tutorial session, and she was saying that she thinks that's going to be really useful when they're out on placement and getting at kind of sort of was just worried that maybe they've over-egged the pudding, as it were. But what I said was that you don't necessarily have to have that as directed time for the T level, and if you want to build in stuff like that, it can be part of the wider college's performance, personal development or tutorial pastoral care stuff. So if you have the opportunity to do that and have a regular employability skills workshop debrief, don't worry about that going over the hours. You can definitely fudge it, as it were. I don't know if that's a technical term, but
it's a technical. I've wrote it down. It's a
brilliant. Fudge it. Tom says to fudge it. Please don't say that. Okay.
I heard Tom from Pearson said it.
No, I'm not from Pearson. I am representing Pearson. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just very quickly, because I am conscious of the time for people, and I want to move on to some of the exam stuff. Bryony asked a question about the ESP. So the ESP I couldn't share with you because it is made up of lots of PDFs that are all put together. But I just wanted to show you, Bryony, and anybody else who hasn't seen this before. So it looks very much like an exam paper. I'm hoping you can see that on my. I've only just got a second monitor, so I'm hoping that is coming up for you. So this, you get all the tasks broken down like this. They look like an exam paper, so the learners get each one.
Tom, I can't see it. I don't know if
nobody can see it. Okay. Right. So Zoom obviously stops you sharing your screen once you go into breakout rooms. That is why. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Right, so as you can see, you will download this zip folder, and it will have it'll have the marking grid, and it has all of the different tasks in there. So it tells you, obviously they're done sequentially in order, tells the amount of time that the learners need to have, and the total marks. But then it will tell you specifically, Bryony, who they can work with and when, and whether it's done under supervision, what kind of internet access is required. So for this particular one, you must work independently and should not share your work with other students. However, if you look at, sorry, I've got so many, it just opened all of the PDFs at once. So there is one where it says that you do need to work with others. So for example, here, you must work independently, should not share your work with others. Where collaboration is required, you must produce your own response to the collaborative activity. So it will be really specific as to when they can and when they can't, and it will depend on the nature of the task. So this is the group collaboration task. So it will tell them what they need to do, and when they collaborate, it tells them really clearly. The group discussion does not have to be recorded. The task includes a 30-minute group discussion during which collaboration with other students is permitted. You will be in groups of 2 or 3 for this discussion, but that they each need to produce something separate out of that discussion. So it is really clear. And if you remember at the start, I said to access the admin support pages, and on each of them for each qualification is the administrative support guide. And that is really, really clear on all of this stuff. It will tell you for this task, they can do X, Y, Z. They must produce, 1, 2, 3. The documents must be named ABC. And one thing that I have learned through this kind of extended coursework model that is coming in more and more through vocational qualifications, it's worth just doing a dry run of literally how to save the files and where to put them, because a lot of students get really stressed and anxious about, oh, I don't know how to export a PDF and how do I call it, and then it makes your job harder when you have to submit 100 documents that are all called, Bryony's work, final, 1, 2, 3, final. So getting them to just like practice the naming of the PDFs, how to submit them on whatever platform you use for submissions, etc. I honestly think it is time really well spent. I hope colleagues agree with that, but I've learned the hard way. So it's worth going through that administrative support guide and going through that. So okay, let's move on. Right, so I am really conscious of the time, and I just wanted to, I think in terms of delivery models, most people seem to have a good idea. This is the one that is recommended by Pearson, this idea that you would be doing the core content in year 1 and then the ESP, in the first opportunity there, because that gives them more chance to do the resits where necessary. And as you saw, students on the borderline, they might want to be able to have a resit for the core exam. The model is supposing that you would do the core exam at the end of the first year, so working back from that, which will then give them, I don't think they would resit twice, but would give them 2 opportunities depending on timetables, other resits, placements, in order to do any resits if required. I'm just going to move along now to, oops, my mouse has gone crazy. Okay. So we talked a bit about this at the beginning. We had quite a good discussion about it, about don't see these as siloed in isolation. Delivering the skills and the knowledge simultaneously is really useful. And I just wanted to show you this, which is that on the scheme of work, hopefully you've all seen, we've got this core skill at the top here, and it also tells you which ones the other knowledge relates to. I always think in that first year or so, it's really worth just getting the scheme of work and the delivery plan published by Pearson and using that as a framework on which to hand your things. I think Richard was talking about that before, about going through that, but then going, okay, at this opportunity, we have the chance to do this kind of project. I heard lots of discussion as I came into the rooms about people doing practical projects to deliver this work. And that's supported by the scheme of work here. So the idea is that you might have a look at the activities in the scheme of work. So for example, you might want to do the stuff on content legislation and regulation. They've got 10 hours worth of content that has been kind of guided to you, how much non-learning time might be required for it, and where you might do it. But you might think, okay, well, when they're doing legislation and regulation, I'm going to also see if I can tie that into some of this stuff here and have a look at some of the activities, the 20 guided learning hours there, and be a bit savvy with that delivery. Because if they're obviously having to look at legislation, let's say they're looking at podcasts, who's responsible for the a guest and what they say on a podcast, and how you have to be careful about libel, etc., then you might want to link that with how lots of podcasts would also have stuff sent through to a legal team before it's published, etc., and how they work collaboratively with others. So just really, I know I'm teaching people stuff that they already know, but really looking for opportunities to be smart with your hours, especially within the content itself, I think is a really, really good idea. Okay, my mouse has decided to not work, I'm afraid, for some reason, to skip forward. So I'm just gonna have to click through. Okay, so we talked about the employer set project, and I've just shown it to you. Just as a quick overview, it's in controlled conditions, it's set and assessed by Pearson, and it develops those real world skills. You saw some examples just then of the kind of tasks, but hopefully you can see here that these tasks match up with those skills that I talked about at the start. So the idea of the that plan, do, review, and those skills that we're looking at, I said at the beginning that they're linked to these tasks here. So those tasks, as you can see, it's about planning their response, going through their response, and then reflecting upon it. And you saw that on the paper that I just showed you then, that each one of these tasks has their own kind of exam paper. And there it is in a more visual way, and how they link up. Hopefully you'll see that the assessment objectives essentially link up with those. These are pretty much the same across all T levels. It would be worth, if in your centre other people are delivering or have delivered T levels, having a quick look at what they have done. So I just wanted to, there will be more work on assessment later on. I want to just quickly look at command verbs, because we talked about this briefly before. There is a bite-sized video all about the T-level command verbs, and the link is there, and it'll tell you about them. But within the paper itself, and in the glossary of the specification, it tells you what these terms are. Now, these are the command verbs rather than the content definitions. So I'm going to definitely go off about and find out about the glossary and some definitions. But it's really worth having a look at these and the kind of hierarchy of the marks that they are worth. So where learners are evaluating, this is what the definition of evaluation is, and this is the kind of questions and where you might find those questions. And you must use for evaluate these definitions, which I'm going to show you now. So this is what the paper looks like. So in response to a question, there'll be some indicative content with up to 12. But also, and this is new as far as I've seen in my teaching career, it's broken down which of those assessment objectives learners can get marks for, and also it's also got in there the different the hierarchy of how they're going to receive those marks. It's really worth sharing these with learners. And getting exam ready is something that I think is really worth doing. A lot of your learners have obviously just come from high school, they've just done their GCSEs, and they will have a lot of knowledge on how to do this, how to break down an exam paper, how to access different things on that. So, for example, this question here, you've got an example of a question here which says explain one way, but it's worth 2 marks. So could anybody just put in the chat a common pitfall, apart from Richard, who I think did this one last month, a common pitfall that learners do where they will not get 2 marks for it? Thanks, Simon. No worries. Yeah, exactly, Sarah. No justification. So generally, we have students, and especially when you're examining, you might have a student here who has just written 2 sentences, but they're not linked. So they might talk about, they might make 2 statements, exactly 2 ways, no explanation. So one thing that I just have always taught my students to do is when they see the word explain on the exam paper, like Pavlovian response, do not even read the question, just go through the first 5 minutes, underline the word explain and write so that or because or whatever word they want next to it, so that they know when they then come back to that question, it's going to be an explain question and it's 2 marks. So they get 1 mark for the statement and a 2nd mark for the justification. Just practicing things like that really does, it's really heartbreaking as an examiner to see so many questions where points are just left on the table, as it were. On this one, you can see it's exactly the same. So quite often what we'll see is a learner will put 2 things and 1 explanation. So just making it really clear to them that the 4 marks is essentially a 2 + 2 question. So it's state and explain and a 2nd statement and a 2nd explanation. So again, when my students see this, their Pavlovian response is to circle the word explain, circle the number 4, write 2 + 2 on it, and then write so that at the top. And I just drill that into them. It's sad that that's what I'm doing in a music technology course, but sometimes that's just what they need to do to get the grade that they deserve for the hard work that they've put in. Okay, so one last thing I want to leave you with is this idea of the command verbs, and what we've talked about a lot about creating a project right from the start that gets learners engaged. And I think it was someone on the previous course, it might even have been Richard that said this, that what they were doing is in the first weeks they were giving their learners a mini project in which they were trying to make sure that they got those core skills, that plan, do, review process, and that they understood these command verbs by making a short animation or film or piece of media that covers these words. So I do that sometimes in music technology. I get my students to write and record a song about microphones and microphone placement. So that's always the first task that they do. So then they're ticking off as many boxes as they can. So it might be good if that's something that you do right from the beginning, is just get them to create a small piece of media content where they're using those skills, using some of that core content. Like Bryony said, as they're doing the practical tasks, you'll call them back to the core content for the exam, but actually what they are producing is something that tells them exactly the word that they need to do and that you and all your colleagues are going to refer to all the way through. Okay. It's 10 seconds until 2 o'clock. So, and I know people have got lessons to teach, and it's your time that you're giving up. And thank you for people for having their lunch whilst they were doing this. I'm sorry that we overran a little bit and we didn't have to rush through some of the ending. There is a recording coming of a kind of a non-live version of this where I'm going to go through each of the sections separately. Thank you very much for all your input. I'm going to hang around for 10 or 15 minutes now if anyone wants to ask any specific questions, but if not, we're going to stop the recording now, and yeah, feel free to leave, and good luck with everything, and hopefully I'll see you soon. There will be more training coming. I think there's going to be some on assessment coming up soon, and it will be timely. So, we'll have some stuff on preparing for the ESP when that comes out. We'll have some stuff on preparing for external assessment.